not reviewing trousers that taper off above the ankles. Before this week, the only context in which I've ever heard anyone use the term Highwater was in reference to pants. But that all changed when I tried out this turn-based strategy game from Demagogue Studio. Does this story-rich, waterlogged strategy adventure make me feel like a smarty pants, or does it bore my pants off? Stay tuned to find out. I know you have ants in your pants just thinking about how well the combat flows together with the water-based exploration, but before we get carried away by the waves, head on over to patreon.com/idreamofindiegames to support independent content and net yourself some fabulous perks like Discord access, early and ad-free content, an exclusive podcast, and even free games at some tiers. Your community is waiting for you. So, pants jokes aside, I promise. What is Highwater? Well, it's a bit of an adventure game and a bit of a turn-based strategy all in one. You play as Nikos, a young man who lives in a post-apocalyptic, flooded future that we can safely assume is the result of a long-term climate crisis. The flooding makes dry land a hot commodity, and the word on the street is that the ultra-wealthy are fleeing to Mars to start a new life. With conditions on this planet deteriorating by day and food becoming scarce, Nikos recruits his friends on a mission to Alphaville, where the affluent reside, to get answers and gather resources for his community along the way. And who knows, perhaps he'll be able to earn himself a ticket to a new life on Mars. Gameplay is divided into 3 categories. First, there is on-water exploration, where you'll be navigating Nikos' trusty vessel Argo through various aquatic landscapes, using a rudimentary compass system that is simple yet effective. Your watercraft can only really accelerate and reverse, so there isn't too much to these segments of the game. However, you do get to listen to Highwater pirate radio while you drive, which is a real mixed bag of news updates and indie tunes that puts even my Spotify shuffle to shame with the level of diversity. More on that later. The next category of gameplay is on-land exploration. Once you dock your boat, you can explore the various land masses marked on your map to interact with the locals, locate newspapers that provide additional context for the harsh reality of the world you're exploring, as well as books and some useful items that you can equip for the third and most complex category of gameplay, which is turn-based combat. The combat in Highwater is by far the most interesting and innovative feature of the game, which is great because it's also probably where you'll spend most of your time. Nikos and whatever friends or comrades are in your party at the time of battle typically have the opportunity to move a set number of spaces on the grid, and then the option to attack or use another type of action like stun, curse, or heal. Each friend and foe has a visible health meter, which will allow you to preview how a specific attack will harm them. You will also collect new weapons and enhancement items that can be equipped to your party that will provide new attack options, healing, or other types of upgrades to your combat. All of this is pretty standard fare, but then there are the environmental traps and hazards. Many battlefields will have interactive items scattered about them that are highlighted in white, indicating that they can be used strategically in combat. For example, if you move up to the side of a bookcase, you can use your action turn to push the bookcase over onto a nearby enemy. Or if there's a box of flaming film reels, you can pick one up and launch it at an enemy across the battlefield. Later on in gameplay, there are hazard squares that you should avoid for yourself, but it can be helpful to lure enemies onto these distinctly marked locations, as there they can be mauled by man-eating plants, blown into the water by giant fans, or otherwise beaten into submission to your advantage. There are other times where 2 types of enemies will be in play and will fight each other, so you may want to spare the lives of some enemies for a while they do some of your dirty work. All of these combat elements work really well together to make Highwater feel like a step above your average turn-based strategy gameplay. Unfortunately, the rest of the game's mechanics fall a bit flat for me. The exploration segments on both water and land feel very much on rails, as you're not allowed a lot of free roaming exploration. Sure, there are some optional points indicated on your compass, but more often than not, it's just an extra item or a book to find there. Nothing feels hidden or like a challenge, so there's no real real sense of accomplishment tied to this portion of the game. Ultimately, it just feels like a missed opportunity to make a more immersive and engaging world that the player can feel a connection to. It's missing a sense of wonder that I think would really take the universe of Highwater to the next level. Menus can be clunky on controller, particularly when equipping items, and in general, everything about the game feels on the slower side. Thankfully, there is a fast forward feature that can be used in battle, and a lot of cinematic scenes can be skipped, but that also means skipping over dialogue and plot points, which is not ideal. Some of the dialogue boxes could be advanced to using an action button, but others could not and would roll on at their own pace. Look, I'm not exactly a speed reader, but I was mashing buttons to try to get those dialogue boxes to advance to no avail. Then there is the story. Obviously, this is an imagined future, but there are a few too many whispers of reality built in for it to feel completely fictional. Regardless of how you feel about the story itself, I found the storytelling clunky at times, particularly since many important plot points are revealed through obtrusively large dialogue boxes that would sometimes be completely cut off by the framing of the scene. I would see entire one-sided conversations because of this bug, and it could even make the story difficult to follow. I'm sure it can be fixed with a patch, and I was usually able to fill in the gaps with context clues, but I feel like that's a responsibility that should not be put on the player. Other than the comically large text boxes, the low poly graphics are charming, and I did find beauty in some of the flooded environments, but character movements were awkward, particularly when they danced. I do see the vision these developers were going for, and the color palettes have a great mood and impact, but the unsettling character movements detract from the emotional impact the settings work so hard to build up. We still need to address the aforementioned Highwater pirate radio, and the sound design of Highwater in general. There is not much voice acting other than the velvety smooth voice of the radio DJ, which I did enjoy very much. Their interjections between tracks were always welcome. However, the songs that played after the break didn't always feel like they meshed well with the game tonally. There's a tremendous amount of variety to the genres of tracks arranged here, some of which were absolute bangers. It might be a personal preference, but I tended to prefer some of the more instrumental electronic tracks. They just seemed to fit the vision of the world of Highwater more accurately in my mind. Unfortunately, cinematic scenes or entering into battle would abruptly stop a track or recording, which resulted in jarring transitions to and from that scene. I really wanted to like Highwater because the combat is something I could see myself coming back to, but the rest of the package leaves me feeling very conflicted. With some patches to fix the bugs and pacing issues, I could see folks who love strategy really enjoying this title, but as it stands right now, I can only recommend waiting on patches or a sale before you brave these waters.
Uh-oh.